Welcome back, guys. This is Cody with Wranglerstar. Today's video I'm going to demonstrate how to build kind of an impromptu emergency shelter. If you find yourself unfortunately not able to get back to your car in time or completely turned around and lost. This is something I'm going to be doing using just some basic hand tools. Some things that you should always have on you. Maybe a small, like the Grand Force Brooks, a small forest axe. You know, that might be a bit of a luxury. You can do what I'm going to do with a good knife and a folding saw, like this Baco Laplander. I typically carry this hatchet with me. I know there's a lot of people out there that think that there's no place for these small axes and that a large survival knife can take its place. I disagree with that. I think that that's a foolish thing to say. I don't care how good your survival knife is, it's not a hatchet. It just it's not, you can't use it effectively to split wood. You can split wood with one hand. You can't do fine detail work with it because the blade is so long. I think it is not, if it has a place, you know, maybe it has a place. I'm not a big fan of them. But a hatchet, you know, that or a small axe, something you can get two hands on, you can do some real work with this. With these two tools right here, I could build a small structure, a small log structure. It would take me a while, but I could do it. With a survival knife, I don't know. But so that's what I'll be using. We'll be using the small axe and the folding saw, and then of course a good knife. And when I'm doing these things, often I bring Jack out here and we you know, teaching him how to do these basic skills or these woodland skills. I always try to work out of my small survival bag. This is something that I've just kind of refined over time. It's kind of a living bag. You know, it's constantly changing as new things come, or I've learned different techniques. But I always try to work out of this. And the reason why I like this is it's small enough that if we want to go or just spur of the moment, you know, go for a long walk or a long hike, I can grab this and I can throw it in my bag with some water, and I know that I'm really covered. And by working with this tool bag, when I do projects like this, I know if I'm deficient in anything. And then I can, you know, make those changes. So I really like doing it. And it's the same thing with the toolkit that perhaps you have in your truck or in your car. You should have some basic hand tools, you know, things to do minor repairs if you find yourself out in a bind. So when you're doing minor and small repairs on your car, be sure you work out of that toolkit, and that will be the surest way for you to know that you have the things that you need in an emergency situation. So let's get to work, and we'll get started. What we're going to need is a ridge pole, and that's going to need to be, it's going to be a horizontal member that's going to be the backbone of our entire shelter. We want something that's going to be a green tree. We don't want dry. It's going to bear and carry, it's the spine of the whole thing. It's going to carry the majority of the weight. So a dried out dead tree is going to be brittle, and if it does have to a bunch of snow piles up on it, it's not going to be any good. So you want something that's green. Here we have our ridge pole, a nice green log, and we've got it lashed across our two trees. I'd say I have probably about between 8 and 9 feet span between the two trees, and you can use a piece, whatever you have. You can use shoelaces if you have to. You can, hopefully you have a bit of paracord or rope, but it doesn't take very much. Just make sure you lash it real good and tight. If you're unfortunate enough not to have any type of rope or paracord, one thing you can do, and I'm not going to do it on this because it is kind of time consuming, is you can use roots. So go find some smaller trees, some shrubs, and you can see here, as I follow it down and dig it up, these are actually really, really strong. And really flexible, as you can see right here. You can actually use these, follow these out, cut them as long as you can, and you can actually tie them and secure the ridge pole with these roots. Once we finish securing our ridge pole, we're going to go to work on what I'll call the sitting or the sleeping platform. And the reason we want a sleeping or sitting platform is to get ourselves off the ground. The ground is cold, and if you ever spend the night out in the cold ground, it'll suck all the heat out of your body, and you don't want that. This particular shelter, how I want it to be built is I want to be up off the ground. I want to be able to sleep off the ground and have the benefit of the fire coming in and warming from underneath, as well as just having a place to sit during the day to perform day-to-day tasks. So where we're going to start is we're going to cut 2 logs probably about 3 to 4 feet long, and I want them to be relatively level. So I found a stone here, as you can see, to aid me in getting this first set and nice and level. So let's go over to the other side. So here you can see I have another stone and a little bit smaller log, and the reason for it is the ground's not level here. I'm kind of on the side of a hill, so I'm going to compensate with the size of the timber that I use. So I'm going to use a little smaller one on the uphill side and a larger one on the downhill side, and use the rock to help me with leveling. Take your time when doing this. Take care and do a really nice job. There's a lot of benefit to building a shelter, just psychologically. Having something to do is going to take your mind off of all your troubles, and it's going to really help you, your state of mind, and to stay calm and relax. It gives you something to do. And so take pride in it, take your time, and do a good job, because you may be here for some time. So you can see right there, our first ground support, and there's the second. Relatively level and plumb. So let's go ahead and start the crossbars. So here's a detail of our first corner. I've went ahead and notched these. When you're notching these, I'll show you a little trick for measuring it and doing it. This is quick and dirty, but what the notching will do is essentially just like a Lincoln log. You're dealing with round logs, and they have a tendency to want to roll. So as you move around, it's just going to come apart on you, and you don't want that. So notching and laying this in here like the Lincoln log effect is going to make this very sturdy and very strong. I can stand on this thing and move back and forth horizontally and laterally, and it's going to be really rigid when we get it all stuck together. And that's without using any fasteners, nails, or anything like that. So as you can see, I can really move around back and forth, and it's really locked in, and that's before we even have the other side done. So that notching is really key. Now the notching is actually really quite simple, and what I do, it seems to work very good, is I take my small saw and I'll come down here and I'll make a little scribe on this side of the log, on this side over here. You don't need to be deep, you're just marking it. Come under here, just a quick scribe on both sides, and repeat over to the other side also. Once you get that done, take your small saw and go ahead and cut that notch in, depending on how deep you want your notch to be. So I'm going to go and say about 3/4 of an inch. Make both sides the same. And what this will help you have this nice square edge on your shoulders, which will really help keeping any side-to-side movement. Here's where a small axe like this or hatchet comes in nice, because you can choke up on it and you can do nice detail work. So chip that out and come in pretty deep, and then repeat the other way. This is where taking care of your tools, learning the skills to keep them sharp beforehand, will really pay dividends. Because this looks relatively easy, and the reason it does is because it's a very sharp tool. So you want that to be flat. You can just eyeball it. Doesn't need to be perfect. If it's not flat, it'll rock on you and you'll know. But right here, this is sufficient for what we need. Once I get that, I'll flip this side over. You can see my marks here. We'll go ahead and cut this down also. About 3/4 of an inch. If your logs are asymmetrical in different sizes, you can offset that by cutting these notches deeper. So if you have a log that's, you don't want your platform, your sitting or your bed platform to be raised up on one side, so you can compensate with this. So as before, choking up on the axe. Try to keep those tight shoulders on there. Take your time. Work both edges down to your cut, and then take out the middle. All right, let's see how it fits. As you can see, our notches line up really good and they're nice and tight, so this can't go any further than right here, and this upper can't go any further than this, and it really ties everything together and makes it secure. Don't worry if there's a little slop here. We're not building a piano. We're simply building a shelter that can keep us warm and possibly save our lives. With our notching all completed, we're going to go ahead and put our second upright on. Don't worry about squaring this all quite yet. We'll do that in a little bit. Just make sure everything fits together and it's reasonably level, and that you're in all of your notches. So right here, we have a start of a real good, strong structure that's not going to fall apart on us. We have our notching done, and everything is keyed and locked in. What we're trying to do here is we're trying to get some height up. We're trying to get our bed off the ground. So this will be our last of our horizontals, and then we'll put the top section of the poles, which will form the platform, the bench seat itself. Make sure that's locked in. You know, when possible, when you're doing this type of work, try to do it without gloves on. I know sometimes it's cold and that becomes difficult, but when you can, just train your hands. It'll toughen up your hands. You can work so much better. You can work safer. You have better dexterity, and it just gets your hands prepared for real work. A lot of us that don't have the option to work construction or out in the field, you know, we have a tendency, our hands get really soft working on the computer. So this will help to toughen you up and make you more manly. With our support structure in place, we're ready now to do our decking. So what we want with our decking, we want to find some small trees that are going to be between, I'd say between 2.5 and 3 inches or so in diameter, and pretty even. You want them to be straight, and you want them to be relatively all the same size and symmetrical, because this is going to form the platform that's going to be our bed. So let's go get those taken care of and get them laid out. So here's one tip for you. When you're clearing all the limbs off of your branches, for whether it's for your support braces or for your decking, do it all right here by the shelter, because you're going to need a lot of fir boughs. You're going to need a lot more boughs than we're going to generate from these, just what we've cut so far. So strip them all right here so we don't have to go hunting for them and carrying them around. And you'll see why we'll need those here in just a minute. Alright, now we're ready for our decking, so let's go ahead and get that put on. Hopefully you've chosen poles that are relatively symmetrical and similar in size. So what you want to do is alternate the tapers. So you have your smaller end on this end, and then its friend or its fellow here will have the smaller end on the other side. And if you do have a couple that are a little bit larger, save those for the outside, because what that'll do is it'll give you just a slight cradle in your decking, which will help to keep those fir boughs and the material you're using for an insulator from spilling out over the sides when you move around at night. Alright, let's put everything together. Now as you can see, right here is the side that I'm going to access. The shelter itself is going to cover from the back side, and when I'm sitting or entering the shelter, it's going to be right here. So when I've designed this, I want to be sure that all of these logs are all flush, that they're not extending out and I'm having difficulty, I can't put my feet straight down. If it hangs over on the back side, that's fine, it doesn't matter. But this is, I want this tight to the tree on both sides, and I'm going to start orienting all of my decking logs to the front. And typically with logs this size, which are on average about 3 inches, you're going to need about, what do we have? About 7 or 8 or so. Right there. And we can actually push this back a little bit. So what we're looking for is we want this lower support to be pretty much even with the decking, so it's just more comfortable to use and comfortable to sit on. Right here. Now once we get these in place, we're going to go ahead and we're going to notch just the ends. We don't have to notch the middles because the ends will hold everything together. It'll keep these from rolling out on us. So again, once we've established the leading edge of our decking right here, we can take our saw and make a mark here and on the other side and go ahead and notch this out. We don't need to worry about notching the decking piece of it. We'll just cut a little bit of a notch in this support, and that will be sufficient to hold this and keep it from rolling out. That's what we're after. That should be sufficient. Over to the other side and do the same thing. All right. Very good. Once we have our weight on there, everything's good and tight, and we'll not have to worry about it coming apart on us. We arrive at this point, which I would consider to be essentially halfway done with the shelter. We have our ridge pole secured. We have our beat bed seat frame that's up off the ground, and a relatively flat surface right there that we can use for sleeping and of course for sitting. Smells wonderful. You know, if you're a father and you have young kids, this is such a great thing to take them out and do, even when they're little like Jack and they can't fully comprehend it, and they could probably not build something like this themselves. All of this knowledge, it does sink in, and they are learning. And you just never know. You may be qualifying them, you may be providing them a skill someday that will make the difference between them surviving and not surviving. And I know it's oftentimes difficult in our busy schedules to try to find things to do with our kids, and we have all the distractions of the internet and television at home, and it's just really hard to keep your mind on it. By coming out to someone's property or to a forest and spending the day or even half a day doing something like this is making memories that they will always, and you yourself will always remember, and will pay dividends down the road. So what do you think, Jack? Was this a good project?
Yeah.
All right.
Good project for all the kids.
Well, this is part 1 of the video. We'll finish up the canopy in part 2, but that's enough for today. What do you think, Jack?
Yep.
There you have it. The impromptu little Wranglerstar shelter.
Goodbye, Mama. Goodbye to you too, Pa. Little sister, you'll have to wait a while to come along.